The thing with the glove, I had a moment where what causes him to acquire the glove, I guarantee you, mark my words right now, when you watch Ryan George's pitch meeting, you are going to hear him say,
super easy, barely an inconvenience.
Which I'm very torn on because it's really funny to me, the way that is handled, but it is the kind of thing you will see and you will raise an eyebrow out wondering why they chose to do it like this. Citizens of the Reject Nation, we are here at IMAX HQ once again. Just got out of Godzilla multiplied by Kong. We're going to give you our full spoiler-free review right now. But before we do that, I just want to say a big thank you to IMAX for having us out. Movie of this scale featuring characters this gargantuan. It is the premier way to see the movie.
They shot it with IMAX cameras too.
Oh, did they? Yeah.
You see some of the expanded
aspect ratio change.
They're most of the monsters times.
It is larger than life. So do yourself a favor and go get that expanded picture and sound quality in your life. Godzilla X Kong. What is it about? And how is the movie? Well, we're picking up a little bit into the future, past Godzilla vs. Kong. There is outposts established in the Hollow Earth. There is kaiju activity, titan activity on the surface, and a new threat is lurking from deep within some of the uncharted areas of Hollow Earth. And all that is about to become our problem. What'd you think of the movie, G? Do you like it?
I would say that there are definitely parts I either really liked or really loved. And there are parts of this movie that I also feel very strong about that I really did not like. Stuff that surprised me about that I didn't like, especially after having loved the first movie.
Now, right now, guys, there is a massive reception going on over there. The director is over there. Really nice guy. I got to ask him a few questions
He's staring
as well.
at us right now.
We're just over here because it's a lot quieter. Part of me is tempted to be like, oh, he's so nice. I should only say only positive things.
It really makes you want to. And getting, a glimpse into how these things are made, it does make you appreciate, what is being done and achieved. However, you got to be honest about the film.
And there are a lot of things that I really genuinely did love about it. Obviously, it goes without saying, the action is great. It's bombastic. It allows moments to get weirder. He loves his spinning, winding shots in this one.
Absolutely.
Really representative of the Hollow Earth. Our world being turned upside down.
Oftentimes, I think, some of the more fantastical camera movements in these kinds of movies can detract or can make things feel a little less scopic. However, in this case, I really appreciated a lot of the more out there camera choices they were making, especially in one particular sequence that involves unique gravity, I will say.
Yeah, there are parts of this movie that kind of reminded me of things that James Gunn was going for, specifically with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, in terms of the tone, the music choices, and some of the specific visuals that actually happen in this movie as well. A lot of the things that it seemed like Adam Wingard was holding back on in the first one or showed some restraint, he kind of went all out on for certain sequences. And the main element, or like the question that I actually asked him, is there a party that's tempted to make one of these without any humans at all and just do it with the monsters? Because there are so many sequences in this film that are teased in the trailer, like with Kong and this little ape called Suko, even sequences with the Scar King, the other apes that you see there. I really love the dedication to having scenes, even a couple of scenes with Godzilla, like the scene when Godzilla and Kong first encounter each other. There's a really funny moment there that doesn't feel out of place. And it's within how the characters respond to each other that I love. Those scenes go on, they gestate for quite a significant period of time with no subtitles.
Just body language and behavior.
You watch character growth happen. You watch emotional changes occur in the scenes. You watch relationships develop, intensity, tension. So much of the actual emotionality that you grasp onto in this film is in these scenes where there's literally no humans in sight. It is strong and it's impressive. It's like watching a silent film almost, but there's like cool sound design happening.
Or like one of those old Ray Harryhausen kind of things where it is just the beauty of the animation and the creatures interacting with each other and feeling like, even though you're aware that this is a fantasy and it's movie magic, like you're peering in on some kind of sci-fi nature, not documentary, because obviously they're more characterized than that. But yeah, you feel like you're peering into a forgotten land of some kind when it's doing that.
I mean, I love the character of Suko. Easily the relationship there is essentially the heart of the movie. And while I ultimately didn't think in isolation the Scar King was that great of a villain, his first scene with Kong, though, is absolutely an excellent scene that I really do feel like a lot of people will be raving about, and rightfully so.
And I will say too, there are surprises that happen in this movie. Without saying a lot, there's a lot more monsters than the trailers would even have you believe. Like, it's kind of a lot. At times it goes, maybe you didn't need this many, but there are a significant amount more that allow for a variety of different set pieces, locations of where to have your fight scenes go down,
Power sets and whatnot.
it's pretty cool. The main thing you show up for when you want to see a monster movie and you get the monster mayhem action, it delivers. It's like really cool. And there are some surprises as well, like I said, with certain monsters that do appear.
And it looks really good all the way around. Like, for as many of these, again, big CGI effects-driven movies as we see nowadays, I am the kind of viewer who oftentimes will see scenes on stuff. But for a lot of this, I felt like they realized it and they animated it, because so much of it is kind of an animated movie. That stuff I thought came together.
Because, yeah, there were a lot of great visuals where the color palette was exquisite to behold. There were many moments, too, that kind of reminded me of a bunch of different sci-fi movies. I was even talking about Beneath the Planet of the Apes at one point. Moments that felt like sci-fi B movies.
Feels like Journey to the Center of the Earth, not to pun it up, but like Hollow Earth does have this really fun, fantastical science fiction kind of majesty about it that feels like one of those old adventure movies. It's also a little Temple of Doom in here.
Little Temple of Doom, a little bit of Peter Jackson's King Kong movie as well. Here are my gripes with this movie that sound like you're beating a dead horse at this point, because you kind of hear this with all the movies in the MonsterVerse.
The question with every MonsterVerse movie is the same question,
Yeah.
and each one comes out with a wildly different balance between the answer.
Godzilla vs. Kong, the first one, I really love that movie. The only thing I really don't like about it, the storyline with Bryan, Tyree Henry and Millie Bobby Brown, like I really hate those characters in that movie in particular. I pretty much think it's a near perfect movie for what they're aiming to achieve. And there's a great buildup happening. And now enough has been revealed over like the many, many months of marketing that, this is going to be like a team up movie with that's why it's called Godzilla X Kong. They're going to have an enemy, a common enemy they have to fight. I really felt like the human storyline in this one was especially cumbersome. Okay, I get you're trying to infuse a little bit something here, like someone gave you a note to try to get more emotionality here with Rebecca Hall and Gaia, make it more of a mother-daughter relationship. Let's get Dan Stevens in here to give it a little more levity. And while everyone is technically like they're showing up, it really just bored the hell out of me. Like,
It takes up so much of the movie, and it can get so boring that it made the action less exciting, because you have 2 1/4 of a plot that eventually converge, whereas the last movie, while there's a lot of human stuff in there, it's intertwined in a more focused way with Godzilla and Kong throughout, whereas here it takes a while before it all coalesces. So a lot of the journey can kind of feel a little boring.
the balance I thought was really off. I thought the first movie was more focused. Like it's a solid buildup in that first film. And here, the main plot that's teased in all the trailers that maybe you've already heard about, with having to fight the Scar King, that comes in like so late into it feels like past the halfway point. And then by the time you get to the team up part of it, it just feels like I'm like, weird that I feel like they rushed a plot here.
Well, it doesn't
like, it doesn't feel like they built
It
to
doesn't feel like the movie is building toward that or is about that threat in particular until kind of late in the movie where it appears that, oh, yes, this will be the kind of main big bad we got to make or whatever.
Yeah, it just becomes like a little unnecessarily complex with a bunch of humanity and mythology that just falls so flat in its exposition. It seems to be working really hard to justify the existence of Godzilla and Kong teaming up for a few minutes.
Godzilla, where he's definitely like not the main character in the last one, he's definitely the supporting character.
His presence looms always.
And here they cut to Godzilla randomly a lot, just blowing shit up or doing something. But
Godzilla in this movie reminded me of Scrat in the Ice Age movie. It's
cut
for a lot of it because it does feel like you're watching like some animated movie where there's this like silent C plot that you cut back to every once in a while to be like a comic strip to complement everything else. But yeah, it is kind of, you're taken aback by that fact when you're like, oh yeah, we cut to Godzilla for like a minute and then we cut away for 20.
He essentially feels like an extended cameo in this movie. I don't feel like Godzilla is truly a supporting character in this movie. And by that standard, that part of it is certainly a letdown for being a Godzilla fan. That part is a letdown. It does feel like we had to have Godzilla in here. But I really feel like from what we saw here, from what Adam Wingard has especially talked about, that his interests don't really lie with the human characters. I think it shows in both of these movies. Like, they really dive deep into the mythology of the humans that inhabit Hollow Earth. That's all it is. It's just a bunch of exposition in a very kind of mundane sort of way. Like, I didn't find any of it really
amounts
interesting.
to something very familiar, and the components that kind of flesh out that whole plot line are very much like, not to spoil anything, but yeah, it's very much like a Chosen One special kind of, we need you to be the link between two societies, and it's something that is played well by the actors, but isn't really that interesting in the scripting.
And while you're hearing this right now going, okay, but the things that you're saying are the things that are supposed to be like what I'm showing up to this movie for. You're saying they were great, and that's all that matters. Humans are always boring. The difference is for me on this go around, the time dedicated to the humans just really felt bogged down the movie's pacing and overall energy, where it felt like unnecessarily convoluted when it's not really that complicated, but it feels complicated.
It makes it, yeah, it's weird. It's like there's a lot of stuff nowadays, especially, I think you're apt to just kind of look past because sci-fi mumbo jumbo, y'all get it. And yet there's something about the way this movie plays certain elements that do like cause you kind of to go, wait a minute though, how? Like, in a way that you don't want to be thinking about, because I think a lot of people want to look past that stuff in a movie like this.
Because it could go for the fun and the weirdness, but then it could feel tonally in conflict with itself when it is just with our really boring human storyline here.
I really feel like it lost sight of its main story. It's a simple main story at its core. Kong found a home, but he's lonely. He finds Zuko and a bunch of other oppressed apes, and he has to free them. But that comes in so late into the movie, and ultimately, again, like I keep saying, loses its focus. That emotional connection to Kong throughout the first one is what helps ground that film. And here it loses sight of what it's aiming for its emotional center to be. And that little bit goes a long way to actually making the entire film, like how the last one proved, an enjoyable experience throughout. And it makes the action more engaging and rewarding as well.
And I loved all the things when it was just with the monsters. It's just, when I'm looking back on the experience, I was so annoyed by it.
See, I feel like you had the experience I had watching King of the Monsters, because that's the one for me that aggravated me watching the humans. Again, I can absolutely see how you would feel that way here. I thought all the actors did a good job, but I think the characters don't bolster. It's like with GVK, they found a way to make it so that, like, it seems almost aware that, yeah, no one's here for the humans, but they're able to bolster what's going on in an appropriate feeling way. Whereas here, it does feel like we're going to focus on these people and their journey until a point where you realize, like, not really where this movie's heart is anyway. So it feels like they're kind of patched. And there are moments where you feel like, oh, their discovery of Hollow Earth, maybe there's a way that these two stories can synthesize in a very satisfying way. And even the stuff with Gia and Kong, while still endearing here, loses some of that because it's not as ingrained into the DNA of the story. And
well, that was the part that gave the last movie heart with the humans, was the relationship with Kong and Gia.
And like one thing I wish this movie really carried over was because I thought the last one really did have just enough heart, and more importantly, had a surprising dose of a sense of wonder. Where here they're clearly infusing some plot stuff, attempting to replicate that feeling, but it's just not quite hitting, and can at times feel more like a note, because that's what the last movie did, to hit rather than a genuine beat.
They sort of supplement that with the storyline with Kong and Zuko, which has a lot of surprises in there. There's actually some really nice surprises of what they did. I was like, oh, this isn't playing out at all like how I thought it was going to play out.
A
like,
cute merch character isn't just cute merch character.
No, it was a nice surprise. Like, there's a real growth and trajectory with those two characters that I thought was excellent. You don't get Gia and Kong, you get Zuko and Kong. Overall, I'm like, no, it's absolutely worth watching on IMAX, because when you get the visual pop and the sound, I'm like, wow, this is really great to look at.
And if you can see it with like a crowded house that's jacked to be there, I have a feeling this will be really fun still.
Yeah, and the final battle and everything, like, and sure, is the wow factor a little bit over, because it's like when you watch Avengers the first time you watch Age of Ultron, and you're like, yeah, I've seen the Avengers coming.
We know it's possible.
Yeah. So wow factor is a little bit diminished. Definitely prefer the first one, but there are the elements that they brought here with just the visual storytelling. I'm like, wow, I I didn't realize I was going to have such a massive takeaway with how
Yeah,
strong
that stuff is
stuff
really striking. And I do like Adam Wingard's overall take on this world, you know, even again with the gripes that we do kind of share over this movie to one degree or another. I still like his take and his vibe about how he chooses to color things and the needle drops that he chooses or whatever, and ways that certain things are characterized.
I would love for him to do a third one and like do no humans, honestly. I think people would actually opt for that. Like, of course, you want to see more monsters, but at times it does become a little bombastic to the degree where we never got there, but it was almost at a Transformers level for me. Whereas like, all right, we're cutting a Godzilla and something fighting. I don't know what's going on here, but sure.
And it is that thing too of like you're used now. The further we get into time in cinema, the more used you are to seeing, you know, big stuff smashing other big stuff. There were times when I was afraid I was going to slip into that for the remainder, and it would frequently pull me back with something.
Exactly. That movie, that's what I mean. I never got to a point where I was like, you've lost me, I'm checked out. Like, I would be a back and forth I was having, and that's where the dichotomy is happening for me right now.
And there's still stuff in here I would love to see continue or expand.
Exactly. I really do think the action, again, great, even if at times I'm like, okay, a little much, but
brain is turning into liquid.
Yeah, well, I feel like my brain's getting smashed. But the visual storytelling I thought was excellent. I'm done, John. I give it a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. That's not bad. I think I might agree with you. I'll go 7.28. What did you think of Godzilla X Kong? Where would you rank it among the legendary Warner's MonsterVerse films? What mathematical symbol are you looking forward to Godzilla and Kong doing to each other next? Leave it all down in the comments.
That might be 6.5.
We should.
I don't know, I'm hovering.
We should do check back in reviews.
When I'm thinking about what I don't like, something like a 6.5. I feel very strong about what I really liked, and I feel very strong about what really bored me. And that's the one emotion I really don't like feeling is bored.
Yeah, that's the worst thing, especially in a movie like this.
Annoyed is second worst, bored is top. So to me, I'm like, bored is the worst. So yeah, and I will say I was bored at this side, but man, there were times I was like, man, I love this.
Catch you next time, Reject Nation.